Brockville Museum acknowledges the land on which we gather, exchange ideas, and share our past, present, and future is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. Have you ever been walking through a graveyard and wondered what stories it could be hiding and which fascinating historical figures may be there? Some gravestones tell a whole story, writing out the story of a life lived. Others are simple, and some, like this one, are erected in memory of someone who is laid to rest elsewhere. And sometimes a marker like this one beside the gravestone of Elwood Starr indicates that there's more to the story to be told. Most, if not every soldier who fought in World War I and World War II and has some sort of memorial here in Brockville has a marker beside it indicating that they fought in the war. Elwood Starr was born in Brockville on January 14, 1894. He was a graduate of the Brockville Collegiate Institute, a bookkeeper by training, an oarsman with the Brockville Rowing Club, and had been a sergeant with the 41st Regiment, also known as the Brockville Rifles, for 3 years before enlisting in the Great War. He enlisted on November 14, 1914, not too long after war had been declared. Once enlisted, Elwood Starr became a part of a non-combat unit, the No. 6 Canadian Field Ambulance, as a private and a stretcher bearer. One of Elwood's first letters home from overseas is from when he was training at the Sandling Camp in Hythe, Britain. While there, he wrote friends about the field work and sham maneuvering that they would do for days on end, and how everyone was in a complete state of readiness and waiting orders for the day of departure, and that they could move on very short notice. Before the company was shipped to the fighting, they were inspected by King George, Lord Kitchener, and their guards. Elwood writing that, "This is what I've been longing for all of my life, to see these two heads of our empire, and I saw them." He closed his letter telling friends that by the time they got the letter, he would already be well on his way to France, and he was very anxious to get into it and see how everything will work out. By October 1915, Private Elwood Starr was somewhere in Belgium, as his letter stated, within 4 miles of the firing line, working at a field dressing station outside of a little village. He wrote to his friends that while they traveled to and from the fighting, they passed the ruins of homes and villages that would break their heart to see. Up at the firing lines, the ambulances could only go for so far, making it necessary for the stretcher bearers to walk over dangerous territory to get to the dugouts where the men were. Despite the poor conditions, Elwood remained somewhat upbeat in his letters, stating that he missed the midnight meals that he and his friends would have that were filled with good food, but he really couldn't complain too much about the food that they were receiving. But it was getting a little tiring, always having bacon, bread, stew, jam, and tea at all times, and out of mess tins that had seen some service that would make things a little unappetizing. During the summer of 1916, Private Elwood Starr became Gunner Starr when he transferred to the Canadian Field Artillery with the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Battalion, as he wanted to take part in a more combatant role. In a letter to friends on June 26, 1917, he wrote, "I must have been born under a lucky star, as you said, as I have sure been through many death holes and wriggled through most nobly. When I look back at some of the narrow escapes I've had, it makes my hair stand on end. But what is the use in thinking about the past when we probably have to sometime in the future do it again?" He continued in the letter writing, "No doubt you will see a great difference in me since I left home, not only in looks, but in other ways that change a fellow my age going through such a game as this. One thing, I have become awfully deaf, especially in my left ear, caused from the firing." In mid-August 1917, the Starr family back in Brockville received word that Elwood had been gassed during an attack and was being admitted to hospital. His parents hoped that his injuries would be serious enough that he could come back home for 3 to 4 months for a rest. But unfortunately, a few days later, they received a message that Gunner Elwood Starr had died of his wounds on August 20th, 1917. Corporal H.R. Starr, Elwood's brother, who was also overseas fighting, was given some more information. After taking Hill 70, the battery Elwood was with was supporting an infantry at Lens when they engaged in a heavy firefight all night, as well as enduring a gas attack. According to the reports, the men had disregarded their gas masks so that they could see better to serve the gun, knowing that they risked a horrible death in doing so. Even after being hit by the gas, the men continued to fight until the attack was over and the order came to cease fire. Elwood was then taken to hospital, suffering from wounds, gas, and excessive fatigue. After his death, Elwood's parents wrote to his commanding officers and friends overseas, trying to find out all the information they could about their son. Elwood Starr was laid to rest at Le Pugnoy Military Cemetery in Pas-de-Calais, France, and his family placed this stone here in the old Protestant cemetery in Brockville in memory of their son. Thank you for watching and joining us today, and join us next time for more interesting stories from the stones.